All right, Daniela, thank you. This morning, jurors will continue deliberations in the sentencing of Joshua Rocha, the man convicted of first-degree murder in the death of North Kansas City police officer Daniel Vasquez almost 3 years ago. KSHP 41 News reporter Charlie Keegan was in Clay County yesterday.
As the jury is deciding whether Rocha gets life in prison or the death penalty.
At 8:30 Wednesday morning, members of the jury will be back here at the Clay County Courthouse to resume deliberations on whether to sentence Joshua Rocha to death or to life in prison. I'm Charlie Keegan, part of the KSHP 41 News team that's been covering this trial for the last several weeks. This same jury convicted Rocha of murder, deciding he killed North Kansas City police officer Daniel Vasquez back in 2022. It only took the jury a few hours to come to that guilty verdict, but the sentencing deliberations are taking much longer. The jury deliberated for about 5 hours on Tuesday and will obviously be back at it on Wednesday. Before deliberations began Tuesday, both the prosecutors and the defense attorneys gave their closing arguments. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. Defense attorneys are leaning on testimony of Rocha's family, hoping that the jury might find some pity on Rocha and spare his life in this sentencing recommendation. Members of both Rocha's family and Vasquez's family have been in the courthouse throughout this process, and of course they're hoping for a decision Wednesday. In Liberty, I'm Charlie Keegan, KSHP 41 News.
So KSHP 41 reporter Grant Stevens was actually inside the courtroom yesterday for those closing arguments.
And he's in Clay County again this morning. Grant, what moments stood out to you in the courtrooms as you and the jurors watched?
Yeah, I think the two moments that really stand out to me were the physical pieces of evidence that were, again, brought in for those closing arguments. And the first one was when they brought out the rifle that Rocha used to kill Officer Vasquez. The prosecution actually re-racked the rifle, and that racking sound, the sliding back into the rifle, that was a powerful sound in a quiet courtroom, and that was a surprisingly emotional moment. But they were really trying to highlight the aggression in this case. They were trying to highlight the vile nature of this. The second thing they brought in, another piece of physical evidence, was the vest Officer Vasquez was wearing. You could still see the stains up on the shoulders of that vest. That was another very powerful reminder of the aggression that happened that day a couple years ago.
Grant, what's the big question you think the jurors are weighing as they make this decision? We know he's already been convicted, obviously. They're deciding life or death here. What do you think is the biggest part of that decision for them?
Well, after that conviction, the big question is one the jury has not had to answer in Clay County for 30 years. And that's the question of whether or not these crimes are going to elevate to the level where you put someone to death for them. It's a very high bar to cross in any courtroom anywhere in the country. But again, that's why you heard them, or saw them bring those powerful pieces of evidence for these last closing arguments. The prosecution wants the jury to really remember those moments and remember the aggression, while the defense was really focused on, as Charlie told you, mercy, trying to see if there was anything that they could do to lessen those charges, because they wanted to remind the jury that life in prison is an option here in this case if they were feeling uncomfortable with the death penalty. So clearly a lot for this jury to consider, both yesterday when they began their deliberations after the closing arguments, and again at 8:30 this morning when the jury reconvenes to resume.
All right, Grant Stevens live for us this morning in Clay County. Grant, thank you very much. Of course, we'll push out any updates to the KSHP 41 app if they make a decision today. Keep following us all throughout the day.